Dear friends, on behalf of Trivon Media Group, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce and welcome you all to the first edition of this forum where L. Subramaniam, the founder and CEO of Trivon, and I, the publishing director, are going to share our perspective on the hot technology trends of the week. These are indeed very trying times for all of us. The pandemic has claimed millions of lives across the world, and we continue to grapple with lockdowns, quarantines, and the slowing economy. The COVID pandemic has turned our lives topsy turvy, and you all will agree with that. But to paraphrase Charles Dickens, it is the best of times, it is the worst of times, it is the age of wisdom, it is the age of foolishness, it is the epoch of belief, it is the epoch of incredulity, and so on and so forth. Yet the wheel of life, as we all know, keeps on turning, and we need to remain sanguine. Many of us could take inspiration from Fakir Chand Kohli, FCK as he was fondly known, who recently died at the ripe old age of 96. He was considered to be the father of the Indian IT industry, and all of us have written a lot of eulogies. Subu, as we call him fondly, El Subramaniam, also has written a lovely piece for CXO today. Uh, Kohli was the founding CEO of India's largest Indian IT services provider, TCS, whose annual turnover today stands at around 23 billion, and it has around 417,000 employees. So these are very interesting times, and FCK or Fakir Chand Kohli is a man that we all used to look up to. Subbu, you've had some, I think you have met Mr. Kohli on at least 20 or 30 occasions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you know the man pretty well enough. So give us kind of an insight into this personality, because what we know, as most of us who have interacted with him at any given point in time, he was a spitfire kind of personality, yet he had a heart of gold, and his leadership style was something very, very different.
See, Kohli, I'm personally saddened because, like you said, these are trying times, and 2020 has been a very interesting year. But to me, I think Kohli's passing away was personally very sad. Uh, he was a very different kind of a person. He was the kind of person I don't think anybody in India has ever encountered or will probably meet. He was, as Ramray said, he was a benevolent autocrat. I don't think he saw himself as a benevolent autocrat. I don't think the word benevolence was there in his lexicon. Having said that, he was a great guy. I don't know whether you're aware. For till such time TCS, went for an IPO, he was not called the CEO at all. He
Yes.
was called director in charge because TCS was a division of Tata Sons. Okay, and I used to interact with him a lot. And the interesting thing about Kohli was that we remember him now as a guy who created TCS and became created the largest software company. But the man's first passion was actually not software; it was actually hardware. And every time I used to meet him, we used to talk about software and everything else. And then he used to say that, you fellows are making a mistake. You are not focusing on what is important, which is hardware. And I know that he has made several representations. He had meetings with the then secretary, Mr. Vittal, on how we should, catalyze the hardware manufacturing. Elsina, for example, he was very fond of the components industry, and he always thought that India being such a large country gives us an opportunity to actually recreate the kind of manufacturing prowess that China, for that matter, Taiwan has. Of course, later he moved into software, and he really powered that company, gave it the vision, gave it the direction, and all the people that we see today, whether it's Ramdurai or whether it's Rajesh, uh, you know, uh,
Chandrasekhar.
yeah, this guy,
Mahendra
what's it,
Shekhar,
Vandrewala.
Vandewala.
Vandrewala. They are all guys who, who trained under him. Okay. And he never thought of himself as a mentor. He used to tell me, all this mentor is all nonsense. You just do your work and get on with it. Okay. But he mentored them, and he was a leader. Which I think Kohli was, although he wouldn't admit it ever to himself, but Kohli was an institution by himself. He was an institution by himself. I mean, every single thing, whether it's a mate or a NASCOM or national IT policy of 1991, he had a hand in shaping it, and he never came to the forefront of that. That's why I feel personally sad about it.
Yeah, I mean, true. I fully agree with you. He was an institution in himself, and he was picked up by another institution, JRD Tata, for that matter of fact. So he was handpicked by all these people. So one institution picking up another institution, and he handed it over a period of time. And TCS today, as we see, as I said earlier, also it's a 23 billion company today, and I think its market cap also. I think last month it overtook Accenture. And now
Accenture.
that was quite a feat, I thought, in
Absolutely.
today's time. Which also brings me to another very interesting observation. I mean, we have discussed this in the past also, that the Indian IT industry. FC Kohli was a person, like you have seen the evolution of the Indian IT industry along with him. The man himself has moved from software, his passion of Linux, open source. Then he started talking about Indian regional languages, and I think I met him some few years back in Mumbai, and we were talking about it. And he said, and he had this lovely habit of, talking. Timon Che, are you related to Dazzle Demonte? I said, no, but he was my editor at one point in time. So, very courteous, and I honestly did not see the kind of temperament that we typically talk about. Maybe he was quite nice to me at that point in time. And but what I liked was his passion about the Indian regional languages, the kind of stuff that he wanted to do. That I think also highlights the transition of the entire Indian IT industry, which is something that you have seen the evolution very much out there, right from what used to be seen just as plain ADM services. Then we moved to kind of consulting services, looking at all the top guys. Then we suddenly are now talking about digital transformation and being partners in business. Uh, Succinctly, I'm sure you can just capture these as points on the evolution part of it.
I think the first marker of the software industry, I think, was late 80s when Texas Instruments got its first 64 KB link set up in Bangalore. And I think that was a major event for the industry because nobody had ever had their own dedicated sat link, right? Data link. And that was the first marker. And from there, we moved on to, lease lines, and then we moved on to, broadband and everything else. Uh, Software industry service, I would call it services industry really, because, software industry is a bit of a, misnomer in our context. Our services industry is obviously morphed. It has moved from a T&M model where it was essentially warm bodies kind of a business model,
Body shop,
uh,
yeah.
to one where we kind of flirted with consulting at some stage. I know that most of the large Indian companies uh, try to create a consulting model to take on people like Accenture and IBM and all of that. Over a period of time, what's happened is that the customer, is first of all the customer has changed. For 25 years, we were selling to the CTO, right, or the CIO for that matter. And essentially, it was a solution implementation where the risk was largely undertaken by the customer, right? Whether it is implementation risk or the resultant risk was undertaken by the customer. I think over a period of time, both have matured. At one level, the customer has changed. It's no longer just the CIO, it is also the CFO who gets involved. It's a business function leader who gets involved, the CTO or the logistics guy or the marketing guy.
CMO.
Yeah, the CMO. And in many a case, it has become strategic enough for even the CEO to be a part of the table, and decide who's going to partner them. So the narrative has changed from being a vendor to being a partner. So that's a one major fundamental shift that I've seen, right? So as a result of that, companies are saying that, hey, listen, if you're going to partner me, then we should also look at this as a true partnership, which means that it's not going to be T&M anymore, right? Especially where the risk is high, especially where the solution is very strategic in nature, right? So you have risk mitigation model, where it's no longer T&M, but it is, where it's results based.
The
So
outcome based one.
outcome based model, which is fairly gaining popularity, and where the vendor partner is essentially committing himself or herself to saying that, okay, this is what I'm going to implement, and this is what your outcome is going to be, and predicated on the outcome, I'm going to get compensated. Okay,
But Subbu,
partially.
I'd like to, interrupt you over here because I have been hearing these conversations for almost 6, 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. We have been talking about like we moved from this whole model of fixed price and time and material kind of stuff. At least we said that we moved, but that's not true actually, because I think there's a lot of discount that you get in the TNM model kind of stuff. Fixed price doesn't offer you too many models, and I don't think everybody has moved to the outcome price model. Is there some kind of a resistance that people are seeing? Is it that it's not working out for some people? What exactly are there? Is ideally everybody should have moved to the outcome or the consumption pricing model.
See, we let's understand this. We For 25 years we were the world's coders. Okay, we did not have or did not want to have visibility to the ultimate implementation of what the solution is going, how the solution is going to fit into the business scheme of things. All right, we were very comfortable in developing the code and handing it over to the CTO and have him, roll it out within the company. When you go to outcome based model, you are going to require a lot of subject matter experts. So if you're going to deal with a retail company, you're going to have a team which knows about retail as a business, and not necessarily point solutions within retail, which you can write a code for and roll it out fairly quickly. Okay, now the problem lies there, because whilst we have a large number of people who can write code, we don't have a large enough number of people who are subject matter experts, who are able to engage with the customer about their business at an equal level, right? Now, if you're not able to do that, then obviously your confidence in delivering value, which is as per what is required with the customer, is not going to be that high, right? So there is a certain, I wouldn't use the word resistance, but I would say use the word reluctance. I think people are reluctant to move into that model. There is pressure building up that you have to be outcome based model, and which is also the reason why you see some kind of a division within the IT industry itself. You have the large companies, like the TCS and the Infosys and likes of them, who are comfortable moving to the outcome based model because they're able to attract subject matter experts. These are also the guys who flirted with consulting, so they know that business. They know what is vertical understanding, right? On this side, you have a large number of companies which still want to go on T&M. Okay, so by numbers they are very large, but by volume of business, they probably are not comparable to the top five, top six kind of companies. For example, if you look at a company like HCL, right? HCL decided that it wants to invest into it wants to get into media business, right? Now, what did they do? They actually set up a studio. They have a media, a crucible where they actually engage with media experts who in turn engage with their customers, right? Now, unless and until you are able to have this kind of an expertise, your ability, forget about your willingness, your ability to engage in outcome-based model is going to be severely limited, right?
Yeah,
And which is
this
sorry, which is
yeah,
also the reason why you don't see them in all verticals. Okay,
right.
you see them in manufacturing, you see them in media, you see them at BFSI. It's a very, very good model because traditionally BFSI and Indian soft services industry has been very, very symbiotic, right? Almost
True.
50% of the revenue
Yeah.
sometimes one point in time used to come from BFSI.
Even on
But if
average, even now it's 35 to 40% at any given
exactly,
point in time. Yeah.
but if you look at verticals like logistics, okay, you don't have verticals like utilities, okay, you don't have so much of expertise out there.
Yeah, six
So
to seven
going
percent.
into, yeah, so outcome based pricing there becomes a little bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah.
We
But
have to up our game in terms of creating that vertical expertise.
you made a very interesting point out here, because I think you have underscored clearly as to why these guys are not. I mean, why outcome based pricing, though it's very logical that we move to it because it is a cost saving measure, and plus I think companies also become partners in business, which makes more sense. But it's not happening for the simple reason that you do not have the expertise out there. There's also another parallel trend that I see, which is very similar to what's happening here between outcome based and fixed price kind of stuff. Is the whole thing of that every IT company, Indian IT company today, or any company for that matter of fact today, talks about, we are digital. So this is the revenue that we get with digital. Yeah, I like it, because that's exactly that. I've had these conversations with CEOs of so many companies. I said, how exactly do you say that this is digital when everything is digital, and you still have to do your ADM maintenance work at the end of the day, which still accounts, ADM still accounts on their balance sheets for nearly 40%. Now, how much of this work is actually being automated? How much of this work is linear? That's another interesting parallel that I find.
So, I mean, there used to be an old advertisement that used to come, which used to say that how come that guy's white shirt is whiter than my white shirt, right? So digital is like a white shirt. Everybody has it, okay, and everybody thinks that his white is the whitest, and till he sees other guy's white shirt, okay. Uh, People tell me that digital transformation is where we are headed towards. So I kind of tell them, okay, so what does it mean, right? Uh, I mean, I think what they're really referring to is the usage of internet and internet-based tools and conduits in delivering the solution. I think to me, that is all that they are talking about at the broader sense, right? There are companies which are actually delivering a digital solution, right? But those are point digital solutions. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure whether my statement is going to be liked by a lot of people, but I'm not sure we have the capability to provide digital transformation consulting to a Fortune 50 company today. From a pure expertise perspective, right? I think what we are saying is, yes, we have warm bodies. Now all that we're going to do is these warm bodies are going to provide solutions from, instead of a client server, from a hybrid solution, from a cloud solution,
Right.
and they're going to deliver the solution like that. I think digital transformation is unfortunately a very maligned, misused term. You talk to 10 people, they'll have 10 different definitions. And all of them, will be unique, to use a very parliamentary language. It will be very unique, right? So, when people, put out statements saying the digital transformation, it's essentially because they're confident that they're not going to be challenged, right? I'm not sure how much of what we are doing is, because see, for digital transformation, it has to lead with consulting. and we haven't had this track record of providing high-end consulting, even even in very large companies. I don't want to take names, but so I think digital transformation is a terminology uh, understood uniquely by each person. Uh, yes, it is digital transformation. I mean, we've always talked about transformation. We've talked about transformation. If you really look at the rhetoric narrative, we have done nothing but transformation in the last 35 years. We have provided to transform the whole world. Okay? So that's just usage of the word. But in the true sense, digital transformation are we doing very limited scale, very limited scale.
I think you made a very valid point from a point of view, because like I remember whenever we used to have discussions around blockchain, for instance, which is one of the favorite subjects that we have spoken about. And yes, we do differ on this particular subject, but I do concur out here that whenever we speak about digital transformation, it is mostly a problem chasing a solution rather than the other way around. So we're not really solving business problems, which I think what companies should focus on. These could be digital tools to solve those problems at any given point in time. But of course, we can speak on that subject till the cows come home. But perhaps we have to look at this particular subject and flesh them out in the later episodes. Probably the next 3-4 episodes that we have. For now, let's presume that. I mean, on the positive side, I would rather say that there has been a lot of digital transformation, or a push for digital, thanks to COVID, because people are being forced to go online. People
Right.
are being used to use Zoom or Google Hangouts or Microsoft Teams or whatever digital tools that they want to use. The mere fact that we are having this webinar across cities and across countries, that itself goes to show the power of digital. So in a way, there's a lot of digital transformation that's happening. A lot of when the pandemic broke out, in fact, much of the earlier signals that came out was thanks to big data analytics that people had done. So a lot of AI, machine learning and deep learning basically machine learning to a very great extent did help in solving it, and at least giving some basic alerts thanks to the data proliferation that we had, right from airlines to this. I mean, we could connect the dots basically, and at a faster pace. A lot went into 3D printing. A lot went into, we had a lot of 3D printed masks, for instance. Some of the small, this thing, I think the valves were 3D printed in certain cases for the incubator.
In some cases.
So that was pretty interesting. I thought a lot of push. One thing that particularly struck me and which is being touted a lot is the whole thing of work from home. Now you're the founder of a company, so you know exactly. But let me tell you, like in a place like India, the only reservation that I have out here, that work from home is a good concept, but perhaps just as we have private and public cloud, we and the need for a hybrid cloud, that's what we have come to. Probably we need somewhere hybrid. We can't defy either one of them. uh, I would love your thoughts on this, because like in a case like
So,
Bangalore especially, electricity is a major issue. So how do you do it?
so work from home to me is a double-edged sword. So, personally at our end, we've been working from home even before COVID. Okay. But having said that, work from home requires a certain discipline. Now, uh, many a time we don't have the discipline. So I hear of anecdotes in my case also. Typically, work from home means that I work from 8 in the morning till 10:30 at night. I don't. If I were to work from office, I wouldn't do that, because when you work from home and everybody else is working from home, they believe that you are on call all the time, 24 by 7. And actually, you're not. You know, uh, from the solution, from the long-term perspective, look, this is going to be a part of reality. Okay, I think even global companies, at least in India, are struggling to maintain that balance of work and home, even within work from home. Okay, So at some stage, we have to strike a balance and we have to say, these are the protocols that we're going to use for work from home. This is the kind of discipline that we're going to have, right? It doesn't, work from home doesn't mean, a 16-hour spread over. It doesn't work. Okay. At the same time, work from home gives you enormous advantages from a business perspective, right? So it's an interesting, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. The only problem that I find, which probably is going to get accentuated, is that we are going to lose an enormous amount of social capital, in when you do work from home. So we have to figure out some way to make sure that we don't lose that much social capital, because that is a very integral part of your professional life, right? Your water cooler discussions, you're going out and having a cup of tea. Those are very accretive to your mental, and your spiritual, balance. That is a big casualty today, right?
Especially
It's
for
a big,
youngsters.
yeah. I mean, even for me, of course, I consider myself a youngster. But having said that, given the fact that I'm a, my gray hair is showing, I do believe that for everybody, it is becoming very debilitating from a social perspective. So we have to balance the social capital depletion. We also have to set in very clear and formal, if I may say so, protocols. Unless we do these two things, work from home is probably going to lead to a lot more of burnouts than what we had when we were not working from home. Okay. Uh, like I said, it's got its advantages, but at this point in time, I think that there's a very, very urgent need to balance it out. That's my worry.
Great. Subbu, it was lovely talking to you about all the subject, and it gave me a sense of nostalgia right from the Indian IT industry to the current topics. And I'm sure in the future episodes, we will be touching on some of these topics and fleshing them out in detail. And dear friends, all those who are watching this particular episode, we look forward to your feedback. Do send us your thoughts on things like, I'm sure you all have your own reservations, or you're in favor of trends like work from home. You have your thoughts on digital transformation. You may differ with what we said, and we actually love a lively conversation. And if you can contradict us, we'd love to sit down. Maybe we can't say at this point in time that we'll do it over drinks, but we'll surely do it over a webinar. We may do it over panel, and over period of time, what we plan to do is also call some experts on the show, so that you can participate with us and have a healthier discussion. So friends, we look forward to your feedback. Have a lovely day ahead, and thank you, Subbu, once again for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Yeah,
you. It's been great.
thank you.
Yep. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.